In the headlines tonight, macroeconomy plans for the fiscal year set to go along with reality in the nation. Technology-assisted agriculture set to help reduce hunger in Africa. Good evening to you all. A very warm welcome to ETV News. I'm Gurum Tariko. The Government Communication Services announced this year's administration of the Grade 12 National Exit Exam is one of the signs of the reform measures undertaken in the field of education. The service said so in a statement it issued regarding the successful completion of the first phase of the 12th National Exit Exam. The Government Communication Service recalled that Ethiopia has embarked on a number of institutional and policy reform measures beginning 2018. According to the statement, one of these measures of change is reform in the education sector, adding that encouraging activities have been undertaken in terms of increasing accessibility and quality. One of the milestones to achieve this is this year's National Exit Exam, which is said is being administered with enormous degree of coordination and months of preparation. The service further pointed out that the exam is designed to avoid corruption, cheating and fraud, which marred it for the past several years. Foreign Minister Dammaqe Mokonnin maintained held talks with his Rwandan counterpart Vincent Biruta at his office. During the discussion, Dammaqe reiterated the long-standing relations between the two countries. He noted the need to scale up ties between Ethiopia and Rwanda through various engagements. The Foreign Minister also briefed his Rwandan counterpart on current developments in Ethiopia. The relationship between the two nations, according to the Rwandan Foreign Minister, is demonstrated through a solid partnership that goes beyond formal friendships. Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Dammaqe Mokonnin says Ethiopian youth should expand Green Legacy Initiative to African continent with a view to strengthening African unity and brotherhood. Mokonnin further underscored that youth who would be deployed to neighboring African countries and plant seedlings should strengthen African unity and brotherhood. Speaking on the farewell ceremony, Dammaqe said that youth would be deployed to various African countries to plant seedlings with a theme, Plant African Fraternity and Strengthen Unity and Brotherhood Among Countries. According to him, the Plant Africa Fraternity program is aimed at expanding its Green Legacy Initiative at the continental level and strengthens brotherhood. He also affirmed that Ethiopia continues to strengthen its proactive role of unity and independence of Africa. An economic expert says a government's plan announced by the president to members of the two houses helped to address the macroeconomic imbalance and reduce the cost of living that will transform the country. Talking to ETV here today, the economist also suggested that the government should install robust strategy to alleviate the unpredicted flow of money in the market. Gosho Melissa has the rest of the story.
At the opening of the joint session of the House of People's Representatives and House of Federation, the federal government has introduced the 2022-23 key priorities. Among these, the macroeconomic agenda is the one given due attention by the federal government. Commenting on the matter, founder of Pragma Investment Advisor Marid Bisrat said the government's plan to address the macroeconomic imbalance and reduce the cost of living will transform the country.
I think it's very clear in terms of addressing the microeconomic imbalances, mainly inflation, right? I think she mentioned it a number of times. So I think that's one of the biggest impediment in the economy is right now that is affecting the business investment, also the consumers, and in many directions. It's also affecting our import as well. So I think addressing the microeconomic imbalances, most importantly inflation, being highlighted, I think it's very much paramount in terms of moving forward as a country.
Marid also suggested the government should install robust mechanism to control and predictable flow of money in the market.
The best way to address it is to gradually float the bill. So that way the market would get a predictability of prices. Because at the end of the day, a forex market is just like any other market. It's not different than you go buying a car, grocery. It's not different, right? So it depends on what really makes it unique is that in the forex market is that it also tells the competitiveness of the country's economy at the end of the day. But we have a forex inflow of $22 billion, and then we have other bills that we have to address. So and the banks need a lot of dollars. So if we can sort of create a formal market to it, where every participant could come up and bid up the price and appropriately, I think that would be the key solution, and it has been addressed. It has been addressed by the Ministry of Finance as a way forward in terms of Ethiopia, floating the currency.
Marid highlighted that Ethiopian diasporas and Ethiopian nationals should send their money by using appropriate channel to boost up the remittance accumulation of the nation.
In terms of from a diaspora perspective, I mean the easiest one would be to send the money in the formal channels. Okay. Simple as that, right? That would boost the country's forex reserves.
According to the president's speech, Ethiopia has gained promising achievements in export and trade, of which the mining and agricultural sectors took the lion's share.
በኤክስፖርት ዘርፍ የተገኘው ውጤት በሀገራችን የውጭ ንግድ ታሪክ ከፍተኛው ሆኖ ተመዝግቧል።
Human rights expert says the belligerent TPLF rebel group should be disarmed in order for peace to succeed. Talking to ETV, UK-based writer and charity worker Graham Peebles expressed dismay with a report by the International Commission of Human Rights Experts on Ethiopia, which he said failed to mention heinous crimes committed by the rebellious TPLF group. Tikistanesa has more on this.
UK-based writer and charity worker Graham Peebles told ETV that the rebel group is hated throughout the people of Ethiopia, even the Tigrayans themselves, that the rebel group has no mandate whatsoever to be on power. In fact, the foundation for the TPLF's power is under some foreign countries, and the group continued to exercise divide and rule against Ethiopians, dividing them between ethnic lines for decades, he noted. In order to reciprocate the AU-led peace process from the TPLF side, people suggested that the belligerent group should show a firm and genuine commitment to peace and finally lay down arms.
I'm trying to think of a comparable situation. We had in Britain the conflict in Northern Ireland for 20 years. And then, but it was different because that was based on a disenfranchised group of the population feeling that they had been exploited for many years, and in many ways they had been. So it's not like that in Ethiopia. The people of Tigray didn't rise up against the government. The TPLF took up arms, committed a heinous crime in November 2020 when they attacked the Northern Command and then started the war. So, I would hope that there can be a change of attitudes, that the TPLF can finally lay down their arms, and that we can move towards reconciliation and lasting peace, which, absolutely seems to be what the government wants. And then maybe there can be some kind of peacekeeping force from within Africa, not the UN. It's, I think the UN, in relationship to the conflict in Ethiopia, has completely lost all credibility. So I think it has to take place within the African Union. But yeah, if there could be a peacekeeping force agreed to come in and ensure that there was no more fighting after any agreement is reached, I think that would be a positive step.
Peoples went on saying that on top of TPLF's theft from the UN, that the entities from the UN failed to mention on their recent report about heinous crimes committed by the rebel group TPLF, which Peoples reflected on his prior published article.
So the TPLF stole 407 UN trucks. The way that I thought it was interesting reading this UN Commission's report on human rights in Ethiopia. They talk about rape a lot in there. And it's, rape has been used by the TPLF. It's part of their methodology. They used it when they were in power for 23 years, and they've used it consistently in this war. And I think I mentioned this in the article as well, the recruitment and use of child soldiers, which wasn't even mentioned in the UN Commission's report, which I thought was extraordinary that it was left out. And I mentioned the support that the TPLF has consistently received from Western powers. So these, planes flying in from Sudan into Tigray, with, we assume, full of arms. Where are they getting those arms from? Probably the US. I mean, they're the biggest arms dealer in the world. So it's I think it was shocking, really, when fighting began again. Probably not unexpected, but yeah, awful.
In terms of a foreign intervention in the internal affairs of a sovereign country such as Ethiopia, the writer says the country, in general Africa, should turn away from the West, for the continent has been exploited and abused for far too long.
Tigrayans residing in Arba Minch town of the southern state held a demonstration condemning the inhuman acts of TPLF. During the peaceful protest, the Tigrayans said that TPLF is a brutal terrorist force bent on maximizing its stay in power at the cost of innocent civilians. The Tigrayans further underscored that the TPLF is far from being representative of the people of Tigray, adding that Tigrayans still remain to be proud Ethiopians.
Ethiopia, as an ancient country in the world, has always been known by its particular history, tradition.
I think it's a beautiful country, but what I like most about Ethiopia is its people. Everybody's kind.
Here in Addis Ababa, lots of changes have been happening right after Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has come to power.
There are some kind of cultural things, like if you can see there are some religions over there.
This one is another aspect that introduces the park ultimately as Ethiopia is working toward this tourism promotion.
The really good ice cream.
Yeah, I can only agree.
Right now I am going to the kids' playground area, which is found in Andinet Park.
Look how fun it is. It's so crowded and big.
The Ethiopian government launched the Green Legacy Initiative in 2019 to address numerous environmental issues by fostering a green culture. The Ethiopian Green Legacy Initiative is one of the finest ways to lessen environmental issues brought on by climate change that have affected Ethiopia and the rest of the world. Kasaun Chani has the following account.
This is Ethiopia's green legacy. Our legacy. Your legacy.
One of the best methods for reducing environmental problems brought on by climate change that have afflicted Ethiopia and the rest of the world is the Ethiopian Green Lakes Initiative.
Climate change poses significant threats. Threats to our lands, our biodiversity, and our livelihoods. Extreme weather events and changing climate patterns severely impact agriculture, livestock, water resources, energy, and human health. 8 out of 10 Ethiopians reside in rural areas, relying heavily on rain-fed subsistence farming to survive. Droughts, erratic rainfalls, land degradation, and increasing desertification cause farmers to struggle. They cause loss of livestock and food insecurity. The population faces further health risks due to rising temperatures and flooding, which together increase the likelihood of malaria outbreaks and the spread of waterborne diseases. These imminent threats demand a response. Thus, beyond simply participating in conferences and summits and adhering to agreements made there, Ethiopia took tangible actions.
The plantation program has an impact on people's lives in addition to being a great example of environmental protection. People have the chance to gather fruits and vegetables and engage in commercial operations related to tree growing.
As of today, we have not only achieved our goal, but surpassed it. We planted 25 billion trees, equivalent to 250 trees per Ethiopian. We have a survival rate of 70% over the last 3 years, and we opened over 120,000 nurseries across urban and rural Ethiopia. Among the seedlings prepared for 2022, more than 500 million are fruit-bearing plants like avocados, mangoes, apples and papayas. This means that roughly 1 seedling in 50 planted for the Green Legacy will improve food self-sufficiency and support income generation. Millions of hectares were planted across rural and urban areas, a good part of it dedicated to agroforestry, which involves integrating trees and shrubs into agricultural systems in an effort to ultimately achieve food sovereignty. This year, Ethiopia has paved its way to wheat self-sufficiency by planting heat-tolerant, water-efficient wheat varieties that adapt to arid and semi-arid agroecologies. As a result, the country is on track to begin exporting wheat in the following year.
The initiative has raised hopes that the whole of Africa will take the need to prevent the threats posed by climate change to the natural balance of the continent very seriously, pointing out that Ethiopia's move is a good model for other nations to imitate.
The Green Legacy has created over 700,000 permanent and temporary jobs, generating approximately 1.3 billion Ethiopian birr in income. These wide-ranging socio-economic gains have been built from the ground up by the people for the people. And it isn't just the people that have prospered, so has the environment, with a significant decline in land degradation and deforestation, along with the formation of new forests. In just the first 2 years of the Green Legacy, the overall impact on carbon emissions is approximately the same as removing nearly 64 million gasoline-powered cars from the roads for an entire year. And that is no small feat. One of the key pledges that countries made at the UN Climate Change Conference in Glasgow was to halt and reverse deforestation and land degradation by 2030. In line with this goal, African countries have come together and committed to restore 100 million hectares of land across the continent, representing close to 4% of Africa's land area.
It is to be recalled that Ethiopia started the Green Lakes Initiative in 2019 to resolve numerous environmental issues by fostering a green culture.
The National Dialogue Commission disclosed that it has been carrying out numerous activities with a view to help the spirit of dialogue gather momentum. Apart from promoting its brand logo, which was created to convey the Commission's vision and goal, the Commission has also been finalizing its preparation phase before setting in motion what is expected to an arduous process for national reconciliation. Members of the commission have conferred with regional state chiefs, expounding at length the planning and implementation of upcoming dialogue process, as well as the institutional policies and organizational structure. Mohamed Dureir, a member of the National Dialogue Commission, had this to say to ETV. Take a look.
ተጓቷል ከሚለው ልጀምርና ከፍተኛ ጉጉትና ፍላጎት አለ ይሄ ስራ በተለይ በአገራችን
I believe the national dialogue is long overdue. Despite an enormous level of interest and activity, we have been forced to drag our feet for a number of reasons. One is the precarious security situation across the nation. Also, the staggering level of displacement and drought have presented a formidable obstacle to the process. When seen in that light, things certainly couldn't go as planned. But since we are on to tougher aspects of the process, we must wind up some of the tasks needed and roll up our sleeves for others. We'll be working on some legal aspects.
According to the Commissioner, Ethiopia has followed the footsteps of some nations who have gone through successful national dialogue. The Commission will apply best practices, bringing them into the Ethiopian reality, he said.
በዓለም ላይ ወደ 37 አገሮች ላይ ምክክሮች ተካሂደዋል።
Over 37 countries around the world have had national dialogue. The process was helpful in finding remedies to conflicts, but not all of these nations were lucky enough to reap the benefits. In some of these nations, the debate fell flat due to one or more agenda discrepancies. Some, like the former Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir, feared that the dialogue might affect their way in power. Thus, he meddled in the process, obstructing it. Thus, we need absolute neutrality from the government. We want all other parties involved to apply maximum caution.
ነገር ግን ወደ ውስጡ ሲገባ የመንግስት ጣልቃ ገብነት ስለነበረ
The African Union Transition Mission in Somalia, ATMIS, has opened joint operations centers, JOCs, across its areas of responsibility to enhance coordination and planning with Somali security forces during operations against Al-Shabaab. A formal inauguration of the GOCs was held on Saturday at the ATMIS Force headquarters by officials from ATMIS United Nations Support Office in Somalia, the federal government of Somalia, and Somali National Army. At the GOCs, ATMIS personnel, Somali security forces, and partners will coordinate and plan operations as contained in the ATMIS concept of operations.
Ambassador, I want you to explain about the bilateral relationship between Ethiopia and India.
Indians have always found Ethiopia to be their home.
The relationship in international fora of UNSC. So what's the impetus for India and what's the mutual understanding in such occasions?
We have always looked at our sisters and brothers in Africa, in Asia and in the Caribbean as our own.
What's your take on the efforts of the government of Ethiopia now to conduct a national dialogue?
African solutions for African problems.
Welcome back, and you are watching ETV News. Scholars said that Africa, which is going through countless ups and downs, should be saved from hunger by promoting technology-assisted agriculture. Although the continent has set the ball rolling with a rather ambitious motto of eradicating hunger by the year 2030, its current level of quagmire leaves much to be desired, they warned. Johannes Van Town has the details.
Globally, the number of people at risk of extreme hunger is increasing due to climate change, wars and high levels of economic instability related to wars, the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic and the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine have played a major role in worsening the food security problem.
This year, as you know, is very spectacular in many respects. It's a year in which several drivers of food insecurity have been at play, overlapping and multiple. including the climate extremes, such as drought and floods in many parts of Africa. You have the various kinds of conflicts internal within Africa, as well as the impact of the war in Ukraine on the prices of food, fuel, fertilizer. We have the economic downturns of economies. COVID itself has played a lot of role. As the end of all this is that the people's food security and nutrition has been really undermined. So Africa this year has seen an increase in the number of people going hungry. We are talking about 1 person out of 5, 278 million people going hungry.
According to scholars, apart from the drought, Africans who are undergoing those times must employ technology-assisted agriculture, appropriate policy with institutional reform and a political commitment.
We believe very strongly that this is Africa's time to take a hold of the food security situation and turn it around. Number one, we have the technologies to raise productivity and produce enough food for every African man, woman, and child. Those technologies exist. You've seen how Ethiopia has taken heat-tolerant wheat varieties and transformed the lowlands of Ethiopia, I've seen it myself, into wheat bread baskets. And this year, Ethiopia did not import wheat. Next year, Ethiopia is most likely going to export wheat, all because of technologies. The technologies exist. Number two, the policies and institutional reforms that are needed to transform agriculture, we know them. Policy reforms, with respect to input seeds, production of certified seeds, early generation seeds, policies in respect to finance for agriculture, and thirdly, the third tripod of the stool upon which agricultural transformation stands is political commitment. Commitment by governments to implement these policies, institutional reforms, commitment by government to ensure that these technologies get into the hands of farmers. That's what is needed now.
Scholars in the field also recommend that Africa needs to work effectively in agriculture to achieve the expected growth in other sectors.
Unless Africa addresses squarely and strategically the issue of food and agriculture, we are not going to make any progress in all other sectors as well. Not on health, not on industrialization on industries, not on AFCFTA, not anything else. Agriculture is key. And this has been the missing link. Even though we have a lot of commitments in the past, the real commitment measured in terms of indicators such as investment is not really substantial.
Hunger is one of the most undignified sufferings of humanity and has several repercussions on African communities who face multiple shocks, compromising their lives, livelihoods, and prospects.
And finally, India expressed readiness to make the best use of the opportune investment climate in Ethiopia and spur growth of the manufacturing industry. This came on Tuesday when the Asian nation celebrated the 75th year of independence, while at the same time marking the 75th year of launch of the Ethio-India diplomatic relations at the Bole Lemi Industrial Park with various assortments. Shagai Mata has the following report.
The 75th Independence Year and diplomatic relation with Ethiopia was observed at Bole Lemi Industrial Park on Tuesday with various cultural assortments. In an exclusive interview with ETV, Indian ambassador to Ethiopia, Robert Shetkin-Tong, underscored that Indian companies are playing a key role in advancing the Ethiopian economy by investing in industrial parks.
India has a substantial business presence in Ethiopia. There are about 650 Indian companies are registered with the Ethiopian Investment Commission, and about out of the potential $5 billion, we expect that $3 billion are on the ground. And according to EIC, Indian companies and factories have given employment to 75,000 Ethiopian nationals. For example, here at Bole Lemi, we have 3 companies. They give employment to 12,000 Ethiopian workers. If you go to Havasa Industrial Park, those 4 Indian textile factories also give employment to about 10,000 Ethiopian nationals. And if you travel around, you will come across Indian factories, Indian farms, and they have been participating in the economic development of this country.
The Industrial Parks Development Corporation Deputy Chief Executive Officer Adisu Mamo, for his part, said 3 Indian investors have invested above 80 million USD and created job opportunities for more than 10,000 Ethiopians in Bole Lemi Industrial Park.
3 Indian investors have been invested their investment in the Bole Lemi Industry Park. They have managed to invest above 80 million USD so far, and they have created more than 10,000 job creation. They are a strong relation with the society. They are a good role model in discharging their social corporate responsibility. They are very miscible with the surrounding society. They are role model in the park operation and management.
The ambassador also indicated that India has also an exemplary diplomatic tie with Ethiopia in education, health, among other sectors.
When it comes to education, we have lots of things that go to benefit both the countries. Every year, about 6,000 Ethiopians go to India for medical treatment. We have thousands of Ethiopian students studying in India. Government of India also provides scholarships. Universities on their own also provide private scholarships.
India is committed to further deepen ties with Ethiopia more than ever, the ambassador remarked.
Over now to a quick reminder of the headlines. Macroeconomy plans for the fiscal year set to go along with reality in the nation. Technology-assisted agriculture set to help reduce hunger in Africa. Well, you have been watching ETV News. Thanks for your company and have a great night.